Welcome back, guys. This is our next tutorial for the DevOps. So in this tutorial, we will install the Docker and then we will deploy our bar file into the Docker container. So in the last lecture, we will created a two machine, Linux A machine and the Linux B machine, and we will generated the bar file on the Linux A machine, and then we will copy that bar file using the Linux B machine. So we just use that SSH artifact, and then we have copy the bar file. So we have the bar file ready. Now we have to install the Docker, and then we have to deploy create a Docker container, and then we have to deploy the particular bar file. So before starting, first we understand what is the Docker and why it's required for that. So basically, Docker is software is called used for the virtualization. So if you have knowing the concept of the Docker, it provides the virtualization, and inside the Docker we can create a multiple containers. So each container is isolated from the another one. So the each container you have some set of software and some set of dependency, and in the few days you want some application is there and that wants some other software and other dependencies, so you will create a separate container for that and you can deploy the application there. So using that, basically we can maintain the virtualization, and using the container we can deploy multiple set of the application with different combinations of the software. So that's why, to maintaining the dependencies of the software and version compatibility, we are using the Docker here. To install the Docker, it's very simple here. The command is yum install Docker. So we have to install the Docker first, and then we have to create the container. So for that, just type the command yum install Docker. So in my case, it's already available. So if you're not there in your machine, that you have to run that particular command, and then it will install successfully. And after the installation, you have to go to the inside the etc and group, and then you have to check that group for the Docker is present or not. If you have successfully installed, then it will create for that. So just open that particular file, etc/group. Cat is the command for the opening the file, and you are able to see the Docker is available. So if you have successfully installed Docker, then it will present inside that particular group. Just check inside the etc group file, and then you are able to see the Docker entry there. After successful installation, then we have to provide the permission to the EC2 user to use the Docker, because we have installed the Docker as a root user. And in the Linux, if we install the software as a root user, then no other user will use that particular software. So if you want to use the Docker as a EC2 user as well, then you have to provide the permission to EC2 user. Then only we can use Docker as a EC2 user instance. So for that, the command is usermod -ag Docker and then EC2 user. That command will provide permission to EC2 user to use the Docker. Just copy that particular command, because the security is there in the Linux, so we have to provide the permission specifically, then only we can use the Docker. So that is the command. So we have provided the permission to the EC2 user to use the Docker software. Now we can use the login as a EC2 user, and then we have to start the Docker service. So currently we have as a login as a root user, just exit it. And now we have login as a EC2 user. So Docker is successfully installed now, but we have to start the Docker service, and then only we will start the container. So starting the Docker service, the command is sudo service docker start. That is the command we can run. The service is started successfully, and if we type docker ps command, then you are able to see that currently no container is present. The Docker is started, but currently we don't have any containers present. So we have to create a fresh container and deploy the Tomcat inside it, and then we will start deploying the war file. To start the Tomcat container, we have the command, that is the sudo docker run, and then we have to provide the name of the container. For then we have to dash name is Tomcat in our case, and then the which port we have to run. We know the Tomcat is running on the default port 8080, and because we are running that Tomcat inside the particular container. So that 8080 port is for that particular VM. Inside that particular VM, we are running the Docker. So that 8080 port is for the Docker. That's why we have to provide P port 8080, that is for the particular VM, and that is for the Docker software. So that's why you have to provide 8080 colon 8080, and then the image name, that is the Tomcat colon latest. So it will download the latest Tomcat image and create the container for us. Just press the enter. So I think it's starting the Docker server. Just give me a minute. So it successfully created the container that contains the Tomcat. Now we have to access the Tomcat and then we have to perform some operations. So for that we have to go inside that particular container. To go inside that particular container, this command called docker exec -it, and then we have to provide the name of the container is Tomcat, and then /bin /bash. So we put, now we are inside the particular container. So previously we are working inside a EC2 user and then working inside the VM. Now we have created the container successfully that contain the Tomcat, and now we have moved inside the particular Tomcat container. Now if you put ls-a, then you are able to see that webapps folder is there for the Tomcat, and one more folder is called webapps.dist. So if you go to the webapps folder again, cd.webapps, and you type ls-a, you are able to see this empty. But by default, if you install the Tomcat, then it will provide some default folders are there. But we have installed the Tomcat image. So in the case of Tomcat image, the webapps folder is empty. All the file that is required for the Tomcat is present inside the webapps.dist file. In the case of image, so just move to the folder cd webapps.dist, and if you type ls-a here, then you are able to see all the folder that is required to Tomcat to start, like root, docs, example, and all these things. That is present inside the webapps.dist folder, not inside the webapps folder. But we require all the things present inside the webapps only. Then only our Tomcat will start working. So in the case, if you install Tomcat directly, then it will come inside the webapps folder. But if you install the Tomcat image, then in that case it will come inside the webapps.dist folder. So we have to move that particular folders to webapps.dist to webapps. Then only our Tomcat will get started. For that, we already know for the moving the copying the folder, we have command called cp. So cp hyphen R is for the copying the recursively, and then we have to move all the files. If you want to move all the files, then we can say /* and where we want to move that particular file to the webapps folder. So we can say webapps, right? Just press enter. Sorry, we have to provide the complete path for the webapps folder, not that. So just we have to type user and then local and then Tomcat, and then inside the Tomcat we have folder called webapps. So the path is user local Tomcat and then webapps. Just press enter. It's moved successfully. Now if you press cd dot and move to the folder cd webapps and then ls-a, now you are able to see all the folders that is required to start the Tomcat is present. And if you want to access the Tomcat is working or not, just to open the browser, copy your machine IP address and just type IP colon 8080. So Tomcat is successfully started, and you are able to see that Tomcat default home page is there. So whatever we have did till now, we have installed the Docker, provide the permission as a EC2 user, then start the Docker service. Then we have created a container for the Tomcat, and then we will move the file from the webapp.dist folder to webapps, because in the image by default this comes inside the webapps.dist folder, but we require all the file inside the webapps folder only. Then only our Tomcat will start. So we have moved. The next action is we have to deploy that particular war file inside that particular webapps folder. Then only that deployment will become completed. So for that, we know that we have the war file ready, but inside the EC2 user. For that, just exit it. And inside the EC2 user, if you type ls-a, we have that particular webapp.war file. Now we have to move this particular webapp.war file to inside the Docker container. For the normal copy, we have the command called cp. But if you want to copy inside the Docker container, then we have to provide the command called docker cp. Docker cp, and then which file we have to move? Then we have to move the file called webapp.war file. And where we have to move that particular war file, that we have to also provide. So then we have to provide that particular path for that file. So that file is, we have to move to the container called name is Tomcat, the container name, and then colon, and then exit path. The exit path is user local, then Tomcat, and then webapps / webapp.war. Just cross check that particular file. The docker cp webapp.war file and the name of the container, and then user local Tomcat webapps folder. Inside the webapps folder, we want to deploy that particular webapp.war file. So the command is corrected. Just press enter. It's done. And if you move again to that particular container, docker exet -it, and then the name of the container is Tomcat. Sorry, and then /win/dash. That's it. And if you type ls-a and move to the webapps folder, cd webapps, and then ls-a, you are able to see that particular webapp.war file is present. And if you want to access the same using the URL, just the Tomcat is there, just open the /webapp. So the web file is deployed, and we already see the message. This is a project created for the Devops practice. So in this lecture, we have installed the Docker successfully, and then we have provided the permission, and then we have created the Docker container and installed the Tomcat in it, and then we have made the Tomcat ready to move that particular file into the webapps folder, and then we will copy that particular webapp.file inside the Tomcat webapps folder, and then our deployment is complete. In the next lecture, we will create a Docker file and do all these processes automatically. In this lecture, we have all the things manually. In the next lecture, we will create a Docker file and then do the deployment automatically using the Docker file. So that's all for this lecture. If you have any questions or query, you can reach out to me on the LinkedIn. And the next lecture, we will continue with the Docker file for the automatic deployment. So thank you. Thanks for your time. Thanks.